you talk about some arrogance here. I'm going to show you. This is what Zelensky himself released just today also in talking about how he's going to get this done.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for standing with us. So today we'll focus on how to build and guarantee real and lasting security. Key points: 30-day ceasefire backed with sanctions pressure, strengthening Ukraine's air defense, and increasing international defense support for Ukraine, including the investment in Ukrainian defense production, security guarantees and contingents, and of course, we'll discuss our unity with the United States and backstop. Dear friends, there's no need today to explain the whole situation in detail. Everyone understands what's happening and what needs to be done.
Yeah, but do they though? Do they understand what's happening, what needs to be done? Because it sure looks to me like there's a lot of lack of understanding. Everybody understands the situation. Well, I don't know. I kind of think that we do understand the situation here. And it's very detached from reality, from the version that you're trying to pass by. I mean, you just look at the landscape. You've already tried every kind of sanction in the world that you can imagine. And it didn't make any difference. Russia was hurt in some areas, there's no doubt, but they adjusted, they made changes, and then they got stronger as a result of it. And now and this is stuff that's out there all over the place in the West. There's all kinds of scholarship on this. It has made them, if not sanction proof, very strongly sanctioned resistance, because they have mechanisms in place to offset the leverage that the West would have on them. What are you going to do now? He said something about energy. We have some energy sanctions. Okay, what energy sanctions? Do you remember, and you probably don't because many in the West have forgotten this by now, but relatively early in the war, we were going to bring them to their knees, the Russians to their knees, because we were going to put these, not just sanctions on oil, but we were going to put a price cap on it so that they wouldn't be able to get enough money and their war machine would starve to death. Did you ever wonder why you never heard anything after that? Did you ever wonder why the war machine wasn't brought to its knees? Why it didn't come to a grinding halt? Because Russia figured a way around it, like they always do. Every time you take an action, there has an equal and opposite counteraction on the other side. It's not surprising. It's not unusual. This is how things work in the real world. But now then, we have experience, and we can look at Russia. We can look at this situation. We can see how they've mitigated against that threat. So then now deep into the fourth year of this war, do you think you're going to do now that you haven't done before? Well, as it turns out that there's a Forbes reporter was in Russia, perhaps for this for the May 9th celebration. But somebody today went and said, hey, wanted to talk to Dmitry Peskov and get their view to this. And he said, yeah, we're aware of it.
We have to think about that. We have to think about that. These are new developments. So we have our own position. Yes, definitely. We see that Europe is confronting us. Europe is actually confronting us very openly. We feel it, we know it, and then we are quite accustomed to that.
And do you think that Russia can be pressured in this case?
Well, if you look during the history, during the old history, during the modern history, you'll see that so Russia is quite resistant to any kinds of pressure.
Yeah, and he's right there too. They're resistant to all kinds of pressure. He's saying the same thing, but we just talked about a minute. They're aware of this. They've figured out ways they would resist pressure, and especially because of the battlefield situation I just described to you. What rationale can these Western leaders have to say we're going to put pressure on you now? That we think this time it'll work, when it's the same categories even that has been tried before. And what do you think is going to happen? Does anyone in that group actually believe that Putin is going to go, golly, fellas, boy, I didn't know you were going to actually hit me like this. I didn't expect that. But hey, I had my parade, so yeah, we're cool to go. Okay, fine, sure. We'll just go to a 30-day ceasefire. Russia has said from the beginning, and never anything different, that they would not do a ceasefire. They called it, Lavrov calls it a road to nowhere. Putin himself in December said, we're not worried about a ceasefire. We want an end of war negotiated settlement that addresses the root causes. And they say the root causes are NATO inside of Ukraine, the treatment of their ethnic or Russians that are living within the area that in some areas that still are Ukraine, some that now they consider were, etc. And they're saying there has to be a demilitarization and a denazification. And they say, once you talk about all those things, and sure, we'll do that. They've already said they're willing to entertain the possibility of a 30-day ceasefire, but only if all of these details have been addressed first, none of which have. So obviously, these guys aren't stupid. They may be delusional, but they're not stupid. They certainly know that there's no chance that Vladimir Putin is going to give in to any kind of a pressure from a position of strength. At least I hope they don't. I hope that this is just some sort of gambit, some sort of play, because they want Russia to reject this. Maybe like Zelensky said in that clip I just showed you, where he's saying, well, if Russia doesn't agree to this, then that'll show everybody who really doesn't want an end to the war. Well, yeah, Russia's not hiding that fact. That's not something you have to discover. They're saying, no, we're not going to we're not going to do a 30-day ceasefire that will primarily help the Ukraine side. Why would we do that from a position of strength? Who would do something like that? No, we're going to keep the pressure on. They've openly said that. The Russians have openly said we're going to keep the pressure on. We had Ambassador Polyansky, I believe, on our show, the UN ambassador to Russia. And I pressed him on this, and I point blank asked, if you don't get through negotiated settlements what you consider your minimal terms, will you keep fighting? And he looked at me incredulously like, well, of course we will. We've never said anything different. So they're not hiding this. So these group of people can't not know what's going to happen here. So then the question is going to be, what is their play here then? So Putin won't accept it. So come Monday morning, there's not going to be a 30-day ceasefire. And then what? They're going to put these other sanctions on. And what do they think is going to happen? Do they think that's going to have some impact on the Russian offensive? Because even some of the things they're talking about here, air defense, additionally, Zelensky in some of these that same interview was talking about he wants more air defense systems. He wants security guarantees. He needs this industrial capacity to continue on this 2030 situation thing. Look, folks, you might not be a viable military 5 months from now. Forget about 5 years from now. And if these guys think that Russia's refusal on Monday is any different than the refusal they're already saying, so I don't understand what they're gaining here. Now, the other wild card in this is the claim by both Zelensky and the Europeans there that America has agreed to this. They claim that they made this ultimatum after talking to President Trump. Now, if that's true, then we have another level of problem, because Trump has been talking about, and we've been chronicling it here, that they're potentially days away from being ready to walk away. If the two sides don't come together and make an agreement, then we're going to walk away. Now, it could be that the U.S. is playing the Europeans and Zelensky by saying, sure, we'll agree to that. And then when Russia doesn't, then they'll say, okay, I said that we would walk if the two sides didn't come together. This was our last play. Now we're walking. I hope that's what's going to happen, because if that's what the play was, there are better ways to do it. I certainly wouldn't have done it kind of, I guess I won't say deceptively against even our own allies. I'd much rather be very clear and open about it. But if that's the path he goes, that's the least bad path. Sure, we'll walk now. We'll see what's going to happen. But that's certainly what needs to happen, because if it doesn't, if Monday comes and we levy the Europeans levy these new sanctions, and if we potentially add to that and we levy sanctions too, then the White House has lost the leverage that it had.